it's working. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to the stream.
Hi.
You may have noticed we stepped up our game a little bit, stream-wise. We did wait a couple minutes, so regarding fuel, now that we're at the topic already, what's gonna change in regards to fuel? Because I feel like the problem before was that it was hardly available, and just the fuel that got into the game with starting supplies was really the fuel that was getting used up, right?
Yeah, that's right. And there was a great scheme going on. Instead of paying the FX fees, people just bought goods on one planet and sold it on another to get the currency.
Oh.
And that was mostly fuel, I guess. So that led to cheap fuel. That was great. Yeah, but in the next test, or after the reset, we are going to address the fuel situation. There will be one planet, probably in the Castillo-Ito faction, that has Galerite and will be colonizable from the start on. And we will add a new starting package. And right now the working title is Fuel Engineer. And basically that package starts with a refinery. And the refinery for Ftl Fuel is now a tier 1 product. Or Ftl Fuel is a tier 1 product.
Cool.
This is the refinery now. Yeah. And,
very nice.
Ftl Fuel will stay in tier 2. So we'll see how that turns out.
Ftl Fuel will stay tier 2?
No, FTL. Sorry,
FTL.
FTL.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's sort of a timer on reaching tier 2.
Yeah.
Not bad. Okay. Are people still gonna start off with fuel similarly to what's been going on? Like with full tanks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there will still be market makers. I reckon that in the beginning the fuel will be short, especially FTL, so there will be market makers.
All right. Kastina is asking, any possibility of having ammonia craftable as well? I think that was the case in the previous alpha.
Yeah, that might be the case, but so far no plans. But ammonia will be available on an easy to colonize planet as well.
Oh, okay.
All the tier 1 resources will be on planets near the faction space. Mm-hmm. And will be colonizable from the start, so we don't have run into any problems.
Okay, so the faction space and the whole universe setup will also change.
Yeah.
You wanna spoil what's gonna happen there?
Sorry, where with the universe map or what?
Yeah, how the starting setup of the factions and the systems is gonna change.
All right. So in the current alpha we have I think 3 or 4 starting plans for Castillo-Ito, 2 for Montem and Vallis, and one faction has Comitor.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll keep that are the faction space planets, but in the company setup screen right in the beginning, we'll add a few more planets to choose from. So for example, if someone wants to venture into aluminum production like I did this time, mm-hmm. They will be able to start on the planet and select it from the list in the beginning to make things easier. And there will be probably one planet for each resource that is necessary to produce tier 1 goods.
All right, cool. But with more, there will be more planets, but fewer markets.
Yes, we've seen that Montem and Promitor have become trading hubs, and that's fine. I like the idea. And for Castillo-Ito, we will add another comics and remove all other comics. Mm-hmm. So we have very active trading hubs in the beginning, and maybe if the test runs for a long time, we can activate another comics. but we want to keep the trade in these trading hubs.
All right, cool. So fuel is going to be more available. There's going to be more starting resources on more starting planets to choose from, but fewer markets. So trading will be more centralized.
Yeah, that's
very
correct.
good. Yeah, exactly, Castanar. Maybe we'll add one or two, depending on how many players we have and how much, if it's really going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Wait, let me read the chat. I haven't been following along. Believe my STL tanks start at about half. Could be wrong. Yeah, that's right. At least in the visual representation, it looks like they're only half full when they start.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah. In weight and volume. Is there a reason for that? Is that going to stay the way it is?
I don't remember actually. It's
Okay.
just a starting fuel. Maybe we can let everyone start with fuel, full fuel tanks. There's no problem. And there's a change to the Ftl fuel as well. Players have complained that the resources that are necessary to produce Ftl fuel weigh less than the finished Ftl fuel itself.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of easier to transport a lot of raw products to produce the fuel than the fuel itself. And we reduced the weight of the Ftl fuel to 1 ton or so from before. So it's now more feasible to haul Ftl fuel to other marketplaces.
Okay, awesome.
Rumble is asking about the distances between Montem, Prometheus, and Castillo Ito. Well, I don't know if they should be totally equidistant. So the plan is to make the Castillo Ito faction a trading hub for fuels, because the Gallerite planet will be probably in their faction space. So I don't know. Should we make it equidistant? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, if people are gonna end up needing the CI space, then they'll have no choice, right? Maybe it's okay if it's a longer flight. As long as fuel is more readily available than right now, it shouldn't hurt if the distance are different from another. Castellano is saying that was the biggest problem with Ito distance. People set it there, but then collicked and moved to the other. Yeah?
Yeah, but I think the distance alone is not a problem. It's more that there was not enough distinguished products available there. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, it was pretty useless. It had nothing unique going about it.
Yeah,
but probably kind of a combination of different factors, and that kind of led to a vicious circle that like few people started there to begin with, so it was hard to get supplies there, or very expensive. And then if you produce anything there, you had to ship it out over a long distance. So all these things combined made it rather unattractive to go there. But from the sounds of it, that will be better in the next alpha.
So we'll have a fuel system and a fertile system and a ore system next time. Okay.
In a way, yeah. I mean, that was always the idea in the world design. I mean, at the moment we're just playing with 3 factions. At the end of the day, it will be 5. So it was always the idea to give each of them kind of a profile or a certain resource that they naturally have available easily, that others have harder access to encourage trade between the different economic areas, and the different currencies. That didn't work out too well in the last alpha, but I think this time should be better.
And in terms of the new fuel availability, did the recipe change, or is the recipe gonna change at all, or is it just gonna be more accessible due to the fuel profile you can pick and the more available resources?
Yeah, the recipe won't change.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll make sure that all the necessary resources are nearby, or at least on one of the starting planets, so it can be traded.
All right, awesome. I'll see if there's also something going on Discord. Hold on. No, just a shout out by Castanar. All right. Okay, cool. So apart from that, what else is gonna change, guys?
Okay, let's see what's on the list.
I'll leave that to Michi.
Okay. Did we mention the changed sign-up flow? Not yet.
We posted about it on a devlog or two.
Yeah. So basically the idea is to give the players more information when they start the game, and we split up the whole company registration and setup into 3 distinguished steps. And it's also possible to go back. That wasn't possible in the current alpha. After selecting a starting package and a faction, you couldn't go back and undo that. That's now possible. And in the first step, you can select a starting package. In the second, you can select the location, and with that also your faction, because every location will be part of a faction. And in that screen, you can also see some information about the location. And it's basically another version of the surface map or the planet map that's already in the game. So we'll see how many plots are taken, how many plots are available, the resources of the planet. And we have a little market information screen in there that will show the demand and supply of certain goods. And the selection of goods depends on the selection of the starting packet you picked earlier. So, for example, for Victualler, we'll show drinking water and rations and so on. And the third step is just entering the company name and code, just as before. And we have a little, how's that called? Hints. For example, if you choose to be a carbon farmer and you select a location that has no fertility, you will get a warning, since that doesn't really make any sense. Thanks for the screen.
Yeah, I brought it up here so people can see the new setup screens. Yeah, one problem with the old sign-up flow that might have resulted in some colleagues was that people had to pick things they probably cared less about first, like the faction, and then later they realized they wanted to be like a farmer, but they had already picked a faction with no good planets for farming. And now we can just switch between the tabs, and we expect that to result in fewer people starting over.
Yeah, and we added that little eye icon, which will show a tooltip to explain the things that are going on. To make it even easier to understand what's happening for new players.
What's with the current demand line? How's that gonna work?
Sorry, come again?
The current demand line. How is it gonna be determined?
That's a manual process right now.
Okay.
We'll ask the players what they think the demand is and weigh in our own opinion, and then just change the label from low to high and average.
Oh, cool.
It's just a rough indication how much the profession is needed.
Awesome. So it's gonna be like a community voted thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me bring up the
other
other
one.
one.
Community influenced. Vote is such a strong word.
Okay.
Yeah, influenced, yes.
will have the last word.
Okay, that's the starting location selection screen I was talking about. Yeah, and on the lower right side, you can see the market information. And that's actually in real time. So if the demand or supply changes while you're looking at it, changes.
Wow, cool.
Okay, we had some comments in the forums about that, and people were asking, couldn't we just show the whole COMEX information like in the game? And we thought about it, but decided against it. Like the COMEX can be quite intimidating at first, and bring too much of the game into the setup may lead to choice paralysis or players just turning it down because it seems too complicated.
Yeah.
So we went with an easier system.
I also feel like a completely new player, like you say, will be thankful for having just a few bits of information that are relevant to them displayed, and a player who just collected is gonna know what they're gonna pick anyway because they already have an understanding of what's going on in the market. So yeah, I agree.
I'm also personally, so this is really personal opinion here. I think in a game like Prosperous Universe, having one or two colleagues, as we call it, at the beginning of the game, or everyone's path into the game is a pretty normal thing.
Yeah, sure.
And it should not be like there's it's nothing negative or anything. It's just a normal part of learning the ropes. And yeah, I wouldn't put too much effort into building crazy systems that take a player by the hand step by step and lead them through the game. I think most of our players are very capable of figuring that out by themselves. So yeah, I think this new screen that we have, plus the ability to do a few colleagues early on, is a good combination. I think a good compromise. That said, I think this screen has a lot of potential to add more stuff in the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, over time, we'll figure out which bits and pieces of information are actually relevant and useful to people, and then maybe remove stuff that's more noise than useful and add stuff that's actually useful. So, we'll see.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, of course. The last screen is just the company information, right? Yeah, just this.
Yeah. Just the name and the code as before.
And now with the information thingy on the code, people will be able to see that the code is something they pick themselves, which is like, I think, the most asked questions we get. Like, what's the code? I didn't get a code.
Yeah.
Is it my key?
Yeah.
All right, cool. We got some comments in the chat. Kastinar, I think that was on the topic of the current demand of the packages, said I would make it a 7-day running average on the items personally. You mean like how many transactions there have been?
I see. Yeah. Yeah, we just went with the current demand and supply because that's a value we already have and don't have to calculate it. And I think if that doesn't make any sense, and it's a common consensus that there should be a running average, then we can do that.
Yeah, it would be cool if we had some. I personally would like a solution down the line where we have a voting system in the game where people can, because we have this in the forum already, where everybody was like during the alpha was like, tell new players they need to pick farmer there and there. We need them really badly. Something like that. Maybe inside the game would also be an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, exploring the game is part of the fun. I agree. Yeah.
Rambo suggests that we should switch the code of the company code to market identifier.
I'm not sure about that yet. Like first of all, we do have market identifier codes that in the game actually identify the market.
Oh,
So it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
And then of course it's kind of, I mean, market identifier is probably something very, you actually have to know what you're talking about. So that wouldn't help people all that much if they had, if instead of code it would be called market identifier, it would still be just as wise as they were before. And we don't actually know yet we're not 100% sure what this code is going to be used for. So the most likely possibility is, of course, as a ticker later. So maybe that would be a name. But at the moment, it's basically used as a natural ID if you open a buffer or something. So that's the most important use that we have for this code right now. So yeah, company identifier, maybe that could work, or just company identifier code. No, that's not a very good abbreviation, I think. COC.
Well, if it at least said company code in the sign-up flow, I think fewer people would. But with the new information thing, I think it'll be clear. People would just hover and check what it means.
Yes.
CID. Okay. What else is new? Okay, I told you about the reduced Ftl fuel weight. Then we increased the ship's cargo holds once again to make ore transportation, as long as there are no customized ships, a bit easier. Then there are some changes to the world. We removed the double Gallerite planets. We removed the anti-atmospheric resource.
Oh yeah.
That was a bug actually.
Yeah.
My fault. And we will remove some of the comics, I told you that. And we increased the abundance of gold, for example. Gold will be really important for tier 3 items, and it has only been, I guess in the current alpha there's only one planet that has gold, so we're going to change that. Okay, then we have market makers. We removed some market makers, especially the seller ones, the selling ones, for solar panels, neon, argon, and some other resources, because in the new, after the reset, these resources will be available on planets players can colonize, so we expect players to do that. At the same time, we added a few more market makers that are buying, and that's because we monitored the balances of the market maker, and right now the balance is really, really high. Let me look it up. So the market maker for Neo Charter Exploration has almost 2 million.
If you want, you can send me a screenshot of the graph.
I would, but I'm holding my toddler with the one hand and cannot do screenshots with only one hand.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'll open it up myself.
Yeah, and so the working theory is that the market makers for the prefabs have been used really often, and so a lot of cash went to the market maker, but the market makers could not give the cash back to the players, because players couldn't sell any commodities, like for example grains or water and stuff like that. And so the market makers' balances kept getting bigger and bigger. And to improve liquidity in the next test, we added some more market makers, and they will buy very basic tier 1 commodities like grains and so on.
Okay, so there effectively were a money sink this time around.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I got the market maker balance here. Where is it? There we go. So yeah, I hovered over the last the latest piece of information. There's totally no gap here because there was totally no outage the other day. And yeah, the new charter exploration market maker currently owns 1.6 million SEC. Is that correct?
Yeah, it had 1.8.
It had 1.8. Oh yeah, it went down a little.
Yeah,
the past 12 days for past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and now imagine player starts with roughly between 10 and 50,000. So 1.6 million is quite a bit of cash.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So Castina is asking if we have any idea how much money there is in the game. And the answer to that is no, not exactly. I've been adding statistics to get that information this week. And in the next test, we will have the money supply, M0, I think it's called. So it's basically all the money that gets into the game by creating a company, minus all the money that gets out of the game if you colleague, and the balance of the market makers. There's one little money sink, that's the fees for the FX trades, but it's negligible. And we will be able to monitor that. And we will also be, it's also possible now to monitor which items the market makers buy and sell. So it will be easier and less guesswork is involved where the money goes.
On our end?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just bring up the spaceship because I haven't done it before, I think.
Oh, nice. Look, you're still alive. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Right? And there's only a small area in which I can actually move because of the crop screen, but it works fine this way. Okay, cool.
Whose heartbeat are we monitoring in the back?
I think it's
students, of course.
Yeah, either mine or the stations. Like maybe it's sort of that would be too.
The reactor heartbeat.
Yeah, something like that. It didn't loop when we bought this, and I had to cut here and there to make all the screens loop, which was it wasn't. No, it's fine though. The station is alive. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, we covered the new fuel, the new universe, the new market makers, some smaller changes like bug fixes. I mean, everybody has probably heard. I mean, depending on how frequently everybody in the chat has been there in the past few weeks, we restricted company liquidations by adding a cooldown that goes up. What else can people expect?
Okay, there will be larger changes to production and population. So there are luxury consumables and always have been, but now all population groups have them, even the pioneers. And the idea behind the luxury consumables is that if you want to achieve the full efficiency of your workforce, you have to have the luxury consumables. And they are always produced on the next higher tier. So, for example, the luxury consumables for the pioneers is produced on the settler level. And that way, we hope that people have it's easier for people that want to move into tier 2 productions and buildings, because there will be a market for these luxury consumables. And we did that with a few other things as well. For example, there will be fertilizer that's produced on tier 2, and it helps the farms on tier 1 by providing more output or it's providing recipes with more output if you use the fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we hope that's way easier to get into tier 2, because we have it took a lot of effort, and I think no one really managed it outside of corporations to get into tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope that helps.
Cool. So this is the way in which the problem before was that tier 2 wasn't really useful to tier 1 players, so people had to like move in there collectively. But now tier 2 players can actually produce luxury consumables for tier 1, making it way less risky, so they can have a actual market for their products in tier 1 players.
Yeah. And another example, that's not only in the agriculture business, it's also if you're a smelter, you can smelt metals like before, but you can also use recipes that contain a flux material, and that flux material is produced in a higher tier. And with the flux, you will have more output. And generally, we want to move the next. We want that players can expand a bit faster than in this test.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that it was a really, really slow test. I don't know what you guys think, but for me it was a really slow test. And so, for example, we changed the cost for the core module, so we will see more or faster expansions to other planets.
Very cool. And with the new luxury consumables system, luxury consumables are required to hit 100% worker satisfaction. But can workers run on luxury consumables only, or do they have a different impact on are basic consumables more important for productivity? How do the two interact?
It depends on the workforce, but without the luxury consumables, the efficiency is around 70 or 80% or so.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you cannot run the workforce on luxury consumables only.
Okay. Do we know what they're gonna be yet, the luxury consumables?
Oh, that's a good question. For pioneers, it will be another set of clothes, and I think a drink, but I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
I thought it was tea for pioneers or something.
Or was it coffee?
Or maybe coffee.
Don't remember.
All right. We got some more questions in the chat here. Shalindra is asking, did I miss the answer when I was refreshing? I was wondering if starting packs will be rebalanced starting capital-wise.
Yes, there will be some changes. Yeah.
Okay, so not everybody's gonna pick one package because it gives the most money or the most valuable prefabs and then just go into another direction.
No, that's gonna change.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and the cost for some buildings have dropped, so that will also reflect in the starting packages.
Great. Castinar is asking, any work on differentiating the names of the recipes? Basic Rations has 7 or 8 different recipes called Basic Rations.
Yeah, that's a problem. Maybe we should change that now, that there are so many recipes.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down, because, yeah, that's true. That's annoying.
I think it's on the list, trademark, but yeah, maybe you should just tackle that in between tasks. Okay.
Given the importance of that screen, like placing production orders, it is still very much coder art, more than other screens, I would say. I think no one expected this lousy Dropbox to last that long. So I hope we can get that out of the way at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm open to suggestions how we should change that. So if anyone has a good idea or can provide a mock-up, feel free to post it in the forums.
Yeah, maybe at least for now, some sort of differentiation in parentheses will do, like rations. I don't know.
Versus 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, or something like I don't know, this and that based rations, you know.
Yeah.
Depending on the input product.
Yeah.
All right. So we got some more. No new questions. Yeah, something like that. Something behind rations, just to distinguish. Use the initials of the inputs, I would guess. Yeah, that'd be an idea. I mean, it wouldn't be very informative, but it would at least look different in the drop-down.
Yeah, that sounds good. And we did find and solve some bugs, of course. The dreaded persistence bug is now solved. Maybe Martin can tell us about it.
I hope it is solved. I hope it is fixed. But in my test so far, it's looking good. So
okay.
I think that
can you tell us again what the problem is with the reactors?
I can try. So essentially, everything that happens in the game is persisted as an event, and we store these events in our own like serialized format. Like many other games, many other technology stacks, they store data into a database, like with a certain schema. But we don't. Like we treat the database as a dumb data store that just takes binary blobs identified by some ID, and then our code loads these blobs out of the database, deserializes them, and converts them back into in-memory objects, basically. And we screwed up a little bit in that serialization step. So just, I think, 2 weeks or so before we launched the current alpha, we switched out the whole serialization system from one that was very reliable but also a pain to maintain, to one that did a lot of magic stuff. And so some of that magic didn't work too well, and then we just stored stuff in a database that was not supposed to be stored in a database. So that's the reason why many players at the moment cannot get the latest balancing updates when they, for example, already have a production line, because when the production line was built for the first time, the recipes that were available at the time were basically stored with the production line, and they could never change in the future. And there was no easy way to fix that, because the stuff that was written to the database was written, and because it is an alpha test, we definitely did not want to write code that would recover that data, basically, or fix it, which is something, of course, that we will and would do in an actual live version, like after proper release, when we don't do resets anymore. But at the moment, it's not worth the hassle. So we basically will switch out the serialization system. Might actually try that before the reset to see how well it works. And if we screw anything up with that, then it doesn't matter all that much, because it can only be better than it is right now. And then once the next alpha starts after the reset, we know that we have a proper functioning serialization system in place.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, that some updates couldn't be made to the running game world, and some people would have old versions of things because of that, and now we can just do it without a reset. The changes can take effect without a reset.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in generally speaking, if you have some kind of production line, then the recipes for that should be the ones that we currently have configured in the game. I mean,
sure.
Simple example, we might decide, hey, this one recipe where we use hydrocarbon plants to produce carbon was a really stupid idea. Let's remove it from the game. That should be possible, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And with the current serialization problem, that would not be possible. Any person that ever had this recipe would have it forever, but they would not get new ones either. So, because we basically stored everything, this is not going to happen again.
Very cool. Okay, any major like content updates or anything else you guys like to address?
Well, after the next reset, or the next reset is basically a balance reset. So we don't have any major new features right now,
Mm-hmm.
but we decided that we want to roll out the next features if possible. I cannot promise anything here. In the live game world, since we need to learn how to do that, because there will be a time with no resets, and so we have to figure out how that works. And if possible in any way, we will do that.
While still maintaining that balance between, if it's a super big effort to implement a new feature into the next alpha, then we will not do that because it's still an alpha. That's why we call it an alpha, because we want to have that option of resets, and we will not waste too many developer cycles on ensuring that we can put a new feature into a running game. But I think with most of the things we have on the roadmap for the immediate future, we can do it easily. So it should be possible.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. All right, did we get any new, like, you guys want to know anything about the stuff we addressed so far? Any questions about what? Let me read up on the chat. Shalindra says, not like faster carbon was worth making anyway. Oh, so that was probably one of the recipes that didn't update. Okay. I'll check Discord as well real quick. Yep.
And there's one more thing. We'll make the upkeep cost of the COGCs way cheaper.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. The COGCs, I feel like, weren't used as much, and especially not, I don't know, like not all the time. I don't know if it was like this all the time. Martin's spamming the Twitch link.
Who, me? Nah.
No. Yeah. Oh, I can actually have your face up there, Michi. Just your face. Wait.
Oh God, you didn't. What's on that whiteboard behind you? Is it secret stuff?
The resolution
is definitely secret stuff. Yeah.
Resolution is so bad anyway.
I just black bar it.
Yeah, just so say like that.
Okay, continue.
I lost my train of thought now.
Yeah. It's hopeless, Michi. If I want to fire you now, I have a reason, because you spilled company secrets, and it's a no-go.
It was all a setup.
It's just my shopping list. Don't worry.
Okay.
You have a very visual shopping list. And what are you buying? Boxes. Okay.
Aggregators.
But I mean, the Chamber of Global Commerce, I think, is a good introduction into more speculative roadmap talk, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I don't know, if you guys are reading our devlog, then you probably have seen that I kind of mentioned that we are discussing our roadmap at the moment. It got actually picked up by some media. I don't know if Massively Overpowered is watching, but they actually did a news report about it, which sounded a lot worse than it actually is. So before anyone starts to panic, our general roadmap remains unchanged. There are no plans to kick any of those items off the list, really. There isn't actually even all that much difference in the sequence of things.
But we just added loot boxes to the top of it.
Yeah, pretty much that, yes. And googly eyes on everything to make it more attractive. Yes. What we realized, and that's why the Chamber of Global Commerce is a good entry point, is we realized that in this test, and that might of course be due to the very slow pace, but I think it's generally it's more of a general theme, that all the mid-game stuff that we currently have in the game was not really all that interesting to our players.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can just have a quick break and check with the chat room whether this assessment is true. So what do people on the chat think? Is that true to you? Do you think that mid-game features, by that I mean Chamber of Global Commerce and corporation headquarters, stuff like that, was that of any interest to you? Was that a motivation for you, or is it just something in the game that you didn't really care about?
Well, people are typing. As a player, I feel like that's true. I didn't really care about the COC as much as I would have expected. I didn't pay it much attention, and I feel like corporations were mostly like chat rooms and like opportunities for a little bit of tribalism and healthy competition, rather than actual features where you were like trying to work towards corporate structures and stuff.
But I mean, that's a good point. I mean, tribalism and healthy competition that you mentioned, in my opinion, would already fall under the mid-game content, because it's something that if you come fresh into the game, that's not something that they immediately care about, unless you are the type of player who really only goes into games for the social aspects. But I would say that is at least an early mid-game or late early game thing. So what does the chat say?
What does the chat say?
The customer is saying, I think we're just getting to the point where we can afford Coxie upkeep on a regular basis, which to me feels right. Alpha has been running, 3 months? That says the problem is that people need to cooperate, which most people won't. Corps, yes, but on a planetary level, nope. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's also a factor in the whole thing, that the Chamber of Global Commerce at this point is just not attractive to people because they think they're not getting enough out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the COGT upkeep is pretty expensive right now because there has been a bug in the colic that didn't delete the sites. So that sites from very early colics still count into the upkeep, makes it expensive. And we'll fix that. It is fixed right now, but still, your old sites haven't been deleted, so it's still expensive.
Oh, okay. So
from the chat opinions, I get the idea. Like, I get the feeling that that's more like a problem of the Chamber of Global Commerce. How about corporations? So, like, the corporation headquarters, for example, would already give you a production boost, not a super great one, but it would give you one. Was that a motivation to anyone? Did anyone actually try to go for that, or was it more of a non-feature to you? Twiddling thumbs.
Well, we did notice some corporations that were like cooperating more closely than they would have if it weren't for the corporations feature, and we got little glimpses of that when the corporations had collective spreadsheets going and stuff like that. So I feel like just as sort of a chat room and a common label, they worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that feeling too. I mean, now that you mentioned the spreadsheets, I think that is maybe one of the reasons why we decided to do what we will most likely do. Like, so returning to the roadmap topic, the idea at the moment is that, first of all, the early game or the basic game is there. Like, all the features are there, the trading, the production, etc. But it's, I mean, we already discussed it's kind of too slow. That's what all those balancing and resource and planet changes will address. But at the same time, it's like there is not enough early game for people to actually feel interested in mid and late game content. So that's kind of our opinion. That's what we think the problem is right now. So instead of what people would use a lot more and need a lot more are things that would allow them to actually make more of the early game, which is kind of expand, produce things, produce higher level materials, actually open up new markets or expand in new markets, stuff like that. And the other thing that we realized is we definitely do not have enough players to actually feel the dynamics in the game that we want to go for.
Yeah.
So I really love our little community that we have right now. Yeah. So you know all the names, the 20, 30 people that are usually online. You look at the list of connected users and you see, yeah, that guy is online again, which is really awesome. And I like that. I love that. I also have the feeling that we have a very pleasant and nice community up until now. So I'm kind of, there's a happy eye and there's a sad eye, but we really have to get more players into the game. Now, obviously, the first access release that we did in December was primarily a symbolic thing, just to say, hey, you know what, we are there, we have released, and you can give us money. But obviously, the hard paywall that we have right now is keeping players out of the game. So Michi and I have been talking a lot over the past 1 or 2 weeks or so, discussing what we could do about that and what we're currently, like our current favorite thing or favorite option of the ones that are on the table is that we are making the distinction between pro and trial accounts. I think that's the current naming prototype, right?
Yeah.
Or pro or non-pro, or pro and
pro license and
exactly. Like you either have a pro license or you don't. This distinction was always on the roadmap. It just was planned for later. So the original idea was to not do that before early access. And that just turned out to be not a very good idea. So the general idea is to introduce that distinction, which would mean that players that have not paid will get into the game. But obviously, that comes with a lot of side effects. And we also we have always said that Prosperous Universe is run based on a freemium model. So we do not want to have any pay-to-win elements in the game, but at the same time, we kind of have to cut the game in terms of features and possibilities for people that do not pay. And before anyone panics, anyone who's in the game right now has already paid or does have an asteroid level, or at least an asteroid level subscription. So no one who's currently in the game has to pay or won't have to pay extra. Especially during first access. I mean, if you bought first access, that grants you access to the game for all of first access.
Yeah, that's not going to change, and it's still going to last a couple months. But the distinction also it's also not the worst idea to gradually introduce the distinction that will base the monetization on later. But what will it mean in the early days now, that we get free players in? What will they not be able to do that people who did purchase a license or did get a key will be able to do.
So if you Julian, can you just pop back to the roadmap real quick? I think you just had it on the stream a second ago. If you look there, with one of the first item with the coming soon label is the so-called player rating.
Mm-hmm.
And that, if you open that, that was always the plan, to have the player rating be kind of the link between the real world and the in-game world. Like we wanted to blur that line as much as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is essentially you get a pro license, and only if you have a pro license, you are like a licensed what do you call it, enterprise or whatever in that world of Prosperous Universe. You're a pro Apex user, and only if you have that pro license you can get a player rating. The player rating is essentially the same thing as you have in the real world, where you have financial ratings. A company has a rating somewhere between A and F or AAA and whatnot, like what the rating agencies would give your company based on your performance and outlook and whatnot. And in Apex or in Prosperous Universe, it's exactly the same thing. There is a rating. First of all, of course, to signal to other players how reliable you possibly or probably are or not. But at the same time, there's 2 extra rating levels that we have planned, and one of them is unrated. And unrated is pretty much anyone without a pro license.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have a pro license, you can't get a rating, period. And then once you have paid, then you will be, most likely, the details of that are not yet set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
You will be for a while in a rating state called pending.
Mm-hmm.
So while we do not have enough data about you, you just don't get a rating yet. And the idea for the beginning, like in the early days when we start distinguishing between free and pro, will essentially be that certain features, especially system-provided features, NPC-provided features, will require at least the pending rating.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Michi, what do you think? Should I spill the beans on the first feature that could be limited by that already?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So the first thing that we have in mind is based on the feedback that we received a lot with people asking for private trade, in combination with the fact that the Chamber of Global Commerce did not really achieve the goal of people cooperating on other planets, and neither did the corporation headquarters. So initially the idea was you build the corporation headquarters together, you have that in itself as a goal, and by that you expand to other planets where you build new off-world colonies, pretty much. And that just didn't materialize. It didn't happen, probably because it was too early in the game, and there weren't enough players, and overall speed was too slow. We discussed all that. But the idea now is that we will introduce something called, like in the current, or in the first prototypes and concepts, it was called a bulletin board. And at the moment, we lean towards the name local exchange, although all of that is not set in stone yet.
Local market.
Local market, yeah, that was the one.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it's just another planetary structure similar to the Chamber of Global Commerce. So people will have to first build it. It is not going to be super expensive. We're not going to make that mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be affordable in some sense. It must not be a super expensive mega structure that no one can afford. But there is a little bit of cooperation will be required to build it, I guess. And it will essentially be an unstructured exchange. So you can place buy and sell requests. Like order is not really the right word. it pretty much works like the like a Craigslist. So you put in for example, you put in a buy order. You say, I want to have
use iPhone 5s.
Exactly. I want to have, or I require 50 units of rations, and I would pay that much for it, and I want it within 72 hours, for example. You would post that bulletin, and then anyone with a sufficient rating, and that's kind of the point here, anyone who has at least I don't know what we've discussed so far, a P rating, which is pending, or at least like the worst actual rating. Anyone can post the bulletin and they can respond to the bulletin. And responding basically means they accept it, and then what happens is that turns into a contract. Mm-hmm. So let's stick with the example of the 50 rations. If someone else, like if I posted this bulletin and Michi would accept it, then there would be a contract between him and me, and that contract would say he has to deliver me, 50 units of rations to me on that planet. I have to pay him, and all of that has to happen within 72 hours. That is the basic idea, and the idea behind it is, of course, that would encourage people to move out to other planets together, small groups, not necessarily in a corporation, and would allow them to trade materials between each other without necessarily having to go through an official exchange. It would also allow them to get others to supply them with materials, in a sense. So if you have an aluminum ore outpost somewhere and you don't want to bother with getting your supplies, you could, in theory, post bulletins asking other people to provide you with them. That's kind of the basic idea, and our first compromise in the direction of private trade. So we're not feeling ready yet to really allow proper, actual private trade. We still want to have that kind of public interface to it. So you don't. I can't send you a contract directly and say, "Hey, let's trade this at this price," and no one else sees it. So that's something we, as said many times before, this is definitely something that is going to come into the game at some point. I'm pretty sure about that. But at the moment, we don't feel ready for that. But those local markets, I think, are the first step in the direction what people actually want from this. Because my impression is that it's not so much about the private trade. It's about the ability to exchange stuff, not necessarily through an exchange at more flexible prices. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
And in other locations, I think that's a big factor here.
That's true, and you can just accept an offer directly instead of automatically buying the cheapest one or having to like really quickly set a price and like coordinate that kind of stuff. You can just directly accept this specific order by this specific player, unlike the public markets.
Yeah, exactly. You could offer, for example, some things in bulk for cheap prices. And then it's take it or leave it.
And so that you mentioned it, Martin, that people have to have pending rating, or at least one of the lowest ratings. What are factors that will influence people's ratings? They have a rating by becoming a pro user, but what can they do to improve their rating?
In principle, we have 2 or 3 general components that we think will go into the rating. One is obviously financial stats. So if your company is doing well, has been doing well for a long time, has big cash reserves, is making a lot of profit, you name it, all these things, that will, of course, have a positive influence on your rating. Basically like in the real world. But since we're not in the real world, we're thinking about different factors as well. So another one that is pretty likely or almost definitely going to go into there is Social factors.
Okay.
So how often you do not fulfill your contracts.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a topic that we have to touch on in a little bit.
Sure.
How those contracts work. Like how often do you not fulfill contracts, or how often you do it but you do it too late. Stuff like that. That's like the most basic idea that we have for this social element. But obviously you could expand it in other directions. That is really up to discussion so far. And then a third one could be something like general experience, or how long you've been into the game, how active you've been in the long run. So basically what that is kind of telling other players is it likely that if I have a contract with that person, how likely is it that they will actually respond within a certain time frame? Or are they dead players? Like, is that an inactive account that hasn't been online for 4 weeks or something that could influence that in a negative way? But I mean, all of these things are, of course, super tricky. The most important thing for us at the moment is that we have this distinction in general. And especially in the beginning, I don't think there will be much of a distribution in terms of ratings. Most people will probably start and stay on a medium rating. So I'm pretty sure that most players will be somewhere around a C or something. Okay. And everyone will pretty much be the same until we start implementing the rating components, which is not the highest priority at the moment. So the idea is, first, we want to get the pro distinction into the game, and we're doing this via the rating, and that is the top priority at the moment.
Yeah, and determining the rating will be a complicated thing, because we don't want it to be gameable. So, for example, if one condition is how many contracts you fulfill, we don't want the players to exchange contracts just to get a better rating. For example, Martin and I could make simple contracts and fulfill them endlessly in a loop just to get better ratings, and that's of course something we don't want to see. So the rating algorithms are pretty tricky.
I see, and that's gonna be, you won't be able to spam easy contracts to get a super good rating.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the possible exploits, and also the private, the non-private bulletin board based trades seem like a possible source of exploits, right? So we need to be able, because that's one way, for example, to move wares way above or below the going prices, for example. Isn't that right?
Yes, in principle, yes. Like, so we had this discussion as well in one of our brainstorming sessions, where we talked about the problem, if you want to call it that, of those contracts being pretty free. So you can do whatever you want, including outrageous prices. But it's a really fine line to walk in terms of what is abuse and what isn't. Do we want to introduce soft rules that say, okay, you can sell stuff above a certain average that we determine based on other exchanges, or do we want to have hard rules in there that wouldn't allow people to do it in the first place? Do we want to have no rules at all? Because after all, it's a business simulation game, and if you want to give a friend a lot of valuable material for a very low price, then should that be your decision? Should we be allowed to keep you from doing that? That's it's a really complicated topic, and then at the moment we're more leaning towards freedom.
Yeah,
like make Prosperous Universe great again and stuff. The idea is essentially that as long as you're not a multi-account.
Yeah.
You can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah.
With all the ups and downs up and down sides. So like we basically hinted at it as part of the social scoring stuff, but contracts can be broken, right? So if you have a contract with someone and there was a really attractive price, and you delivered the wares, but the other person never pays, that is something that can happen. Like, and we will not keep it from happening.
Yeah,
that is really something that you have to be aware of. And you can do pretty much whatever you want, but that also means that a lot of things can happen to you that could be unpleasant.
And that's just one of the downsides of the local markets. They are unregulated, so if you make a contract with someone, that's totally up to you. And you can, for example, use the player rating to decide if you want to trade with someone. If you want to be on the secure side, you can always go to a COMEX and trade there. With escrow in place, you will always get your money or your wares.
So you mean that people who are actually who break contracts can actually like run off with the money?
So the current concept for those very similar to what you have when you get a pickup contract because you didn't have a ship in place when a commodity exchange order was fulfilled.
Okay.
Like we already do have them in the game. Just that those contracts are very much one-sided. It's your stuff. Nothing else is happening. But the more complex contracts will be the same way, which means a contract is basically, or a contract like the one we're talking about right now is essentially one that includes two actions, one by the seller and one by the buyer. Each one of them has to click a button to fulfill their part of the contract. And there's a certain trust involved, of course, that once you have pushed the button, the other one will do that.
Okay.
And there is, of course, the component that we mentioned earlier that a contract has an expiry date. So if you said, like, if you take the example from earlier, where we said this contract or this trade has to happen within 72 hours, the current idea is that if those 27 hours pass and one of the two parties has not fulfilled their obligations, then the contract is officially not broken yet, but like the other party. So there's two things that can happen, right? Mm-hmm. Say you accepted that contract to deliver those 50 rations, mm-hmm. and you honestly want to deliver them, but you just didn't manage to because you made a mistake, your ship is too slow or whatever, mm-hmm. and you arrive a day late, right? In that case, you could of course contact the person and say, hey, sorry, I will not make it within those 72 hours, but I will arrive 12 hours later. Mm-hmm. So in that case, the buyer who might have already paid for the materials, who could say, okay, I'll extend the deadline. So they can push a button and the deadline will be extended some amount of time. We still have to discuss that. Right. In that case, the contract is not broken per se. There might be a certain penalty for the user who did not deliver in time in terms of their rating. Yep. We still have to discuss that. But there is the ability to resolve a situation like that peacefully, but there is, of course, also the option of saying, okay, you did not deliver within 22 hours. I'm breaking the contract. Yep. Or I'm marking the contract as broken, mm-hmm. and in that case, the buyer would still have paid the money. Okay. And we're still debating on what's going to happen with that, whether you will have whether the other player who did not pay will have a liability in the books and you vice versa, and whether there will be a way for them to repay the money at some point. Yeah. But at the moment we're not thinking about like automatically reversing the transaction. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. So there's some trust.
We're not 100% decided on this. Mm-hmm. In theory, both would be possible. So it could be a contract condition, for example, that they're non-refundable or whatever. But I don't think any player would actually go for non-refundable if the option existed. So yeah, that's all still pretty much in flux.
Yeah, got it. Okay, well, the general idea I think came across. So yeah, apart from all the changes we've mentioned up to this point, there's also going to be this pro-free distinction to those people who just joined us. I think we got some new viewers. In the meantime, people who have a key or who have purchased a tier will be able to play, like have all features for all of first access, as we said all the time, which is going to run for several more months. However, we will start implementing the premium free distinction earlier, in that some people will be able to, or at some point people will be able to play the game for free with limited features during first access already, because we want to pump up the player numbers to get the economy rolling a little more. And we feel like many people are waiting for that to happen, because we said we would go free to play at some point. We have so many people like on our mailing list. We have so many people coming to the website, but most of them are like, I'll wait until it's like free. So yeah, we feel like we shoot ourselves in the foot by not allowing them in at all at the moment. And one of the first things you'll be able to do as a pro user is having access to the bulletin board. And this is only possible by getting a player rating, which kind of determines your trust value and your liquidity of your company towards other players. It's just a little recap of the last 20 minutes. So is there anything else? I feel like we touched upon most or all of what's coming.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'll have a look.
Let me look at my. I'm just having a peek at our roadmap change document. Let's see whether there's anything that I missed, something that I can talk about or not.
Yep, same. And if you guys have any questions about what we've been talking about so far, just write them in the chat.
While we wait for questions, maybe a little bit more information about the local markets, how they will work. So I already said they're going to be pretty much a version of a bulletin board. So you have to pay a little fee for placing a bulletin or posting a bulletin, and the fee will depend on how long you want the bulletin to be visible. And then basically the list of bulletins is just like an ordered list, latest bulletin first. Like that's all we do. Whether there's going to be any filtering, sorting, or something later on, we don't know. But in the beginning, it will just be an endless scrolling list of bulletins, because we do not, or we want to maintain the distinction between a proper commodity exchange and the local market. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, you will be able to see the ratings of the other players there. So based on that rating, you can decide on whether you would risk having a contract with them or not. And then, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to them. They will be very simple feature in a way. So whenever the bulletins expire, they will disappear from the list. And obviously there's a few details to work out. For example, how partial pickups and stuff like that work, things that we don't have in the game right now yet, because we simply don't have the free contracts in any meaningful way. Yeah, that's pretty much how the local markets will work in their initial version. But obviously, sooner or later, what we want to get to is we want to have more distinctions between a pro license and a non-pro license. So there is going to be several features that will only be available to pro users, including existing features and, of course, new features. So my personal favorite that's currently on the list. I will definitely want to put in watch lists for commodity exchange tickers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can build your own watch lists with the materials you're interested in, and maintain those lists. And that's going to be a pro feature. Sounds like not much. I mean, it's not something that gives you a hard edge over someone. It's a convenience feature. You could achieve the same thing with a bit more effort by just like opening all the respective price information tiles.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a convenience feature, and that is the kind of thing that we have in mind for pro-only features.
All right. Yeah, there's a couple of them on the list where I put premium feature in parentheses behind. I'm counting 14 already. But it's mostly convenience things that are, saving you some clicks.
A nice benefit of the rating based approach is that it kind of gives you like it is a rating, right? And if you, for example, if you want to have an actual rating, not the pending one, which means you have a player that has been active for 1, 2, whatever, how many weeks, and has shown some activity that allows us to actually generate a rating about that person. That, of course, is also a very strong tool in fighting against multi-accounts and cheating.
Yeah.
Because we can just limit off certain features that are very prone to abuse by saying, hey, if you want to use that feature, you need a certain rating. Even if it's not a very good rating, as long as it's not a pending one, it means that it's someone we kind of know. We know it is someone that has paid for the game, so has at least shown that kind of willingness to actually have a proper account. So
Yeah.
of course, no protection. There's always rich kids all over the place.
Yeah,
sure.
Spare
Spare €10 like it's nothing, and create multi-accounts based on that. But it's a nice organic way of limiting some of these things, I think. I mean, we had good experiences with that with our other game.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hope that it's going to be similar in Prosperous Universe.
Yeah, I can see that, absolutely. I can see that working as sort of a precaution. All right, anyway, I think something happened to the viewer count. We were like 19 people for a moment, and now we're down to 10 again. I think we should wrap it up. We've been online for an hour and a half. So if there's nothing else you guys or you guys in the chat want to add, I would like to emphasize again that I'll do a little write-up of this on the forum, and the video is going to be saved right here on Twitch. I'll cut it down a bit, cut out the waiting at the start, and but it'll be available within a day. Is there a date for the reset yet? No. We would tell you if we knew.
We have like a rough idea. I mean, I would hope that it will be sometime around March. Michi, would you confirm that?
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on how much progress we're making in terms of development and balancing, and especially material tree stuff. And yeah, so technically we could do it immediately, but of course you want to be ready. I think, yeah, probably sometime in March.
Yeah.
Like February is almost over again, scarily.
Yeah. Well,
Rumble posted mock-ups for the production screen on the forums. I have to check that out right away.
Cool. All right, guys. In that case, see you, Prodigy. I hope that's actually what Prodigy stands for. And everybody else, all of you, thanks a lot for tuning in. And we'll see you guys on the forum and on Discord. And I'll leave the stream running for a little bit if you want to hang around the chat. But I will turn off our faces now. Thanks for taking the time. No, we'll be around for a long time. The company's been around for many years, so we'll be sure to make another one of these streams for in a couple weeks or months, at least for the next reset. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, cool. Then yeah, thank you guys for coming, and see you
next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye.